Welcome back to the podcast and welcome, to an energy update. I don't even know how to put it all into words, what I'm receiving, downloading, experiencing, watching, observing. Gemini season has us had really busy with a lot of things that unleashed themselves, let's just say. And it feels like Pandora's box opening, or has opened, like a veil has been lifting and weird stuff has been happening, which kind of was to be expected, but then also not. So I'm definitely curious to hear your perceptions and thoughts on all of that, what I'm going to share in this episode. But it feels like a huge alignment, clearing and collapsing of timelines and potentialities. And if you would like to go deeper into that, then definitely keep on listening. If you've been feeling a lot of glitches, a lot of just interesting stuff reoccurring from 2020, but then also just really sensing the new path and direction you're going into, it's been so fascinating. And I want to explain it obviously with the astrology of things, that everything has so much to do with Neptune and all of the squares that we are having the end of Gemini season. And basically it's such an end time energy, if you can sense that, because obviously we have Neptune at 29 degrees, then we have the sun moving basically into Cancer, which means at 29 degrees of Gemini, squaring Neptune, and all the planets that moved into Cancer, which were Mercury and Venus, squared Neptune as well at 29 degrees. So there's an end to the Gemini or like a connection between the endings in the Gemini and in the Pisces energies, which basically means mind and spirit, mind and spirit, mind and spirit. And we have been in this dance between mind and spirit, moving into the solstice. And if you listen to the episode with Dylan already, we talked a lot about the clearing that is happening, the karmic endings. And it's also very tied to this first full moon in Capricorn, 1 degrees, and the last full moon in Capricorn, 29 degrees. So it's this clearing of timelines, it's this clearing of mental limitations and constructs and matrix inside of ourselves, and the matrix we thought we had to exist in, that is going to collapse and die within the next few months, that I also talked about in the episode where I go into deep details about the next 6 months. But then also realizing that all that Capricorn energy that needs to be purged, because Capricorn is not all bad, right? It's more like what needs to be purged is really this, the limitations and the boundaries and the karmic stuff. Like what keeps coming up is this karmic stuff that needs to be cleared. And Capricorn is that karmic stuff. It's that karmic loop that keeps looping and looping and looping and looping, and keeping you stuck and keeps humanity stuck in constantly relooping and recycling and relooping and doing the same things all over again all the time. And we see that collectively obviously with everything that keeps repeating, and we're almost over it, but we don't really see how we're going to move out of it. And that brings me into also the conversation about the truth of our nature and the truth of existence, which is not a loop, but it's a spiral, right? It's not that we are looping or are supposed to be looping. We're supposed to spiraling upward, but we are keeping ourselves in loops because we are not learning from the cycles. We are not learning from, all of the patterns that keep repeating. And that's, something that you might witness within yourself, but also in the collective, where you're like, why are we going through the same stuff over and over and over again? When is it ever being resolved or cleared? And what I sense with this Neptune in Pisces, the last degree points, right? And then the Gemini aspect of it and all the upgrades that we've been through with Uranus and Taurus, actually we are being almost like helped and lifted to finally make it. You know what I mean? To finally lift ourselves upward the spiral and not keep, because the pattern keeps repeating and the mind keeps perpetuating, that we are in the loop again, right? Because we are not elevating our frequency, but we are basically attuning ourselves back into the old frequency. And we are not learning and evolving, and consciousness is just so over it that this Neptune aspect just lifts us up. It just helps us, gives us a boost almost to a higher, more elevated perception about the things that are happening. So we are not instantly swept away by it or threatened by it, and all of a sudden we are just, it feels like out of the blue that we are just lifted. We just lifted, like the veil has been lifted, and all of a sudden stuff has just been lifting. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because when that happens, and it almost feels like it's not our own making, weird shit is going to happen, because your vibration changed out of the blue, let's just say, right? By you sleeping, and then you wake up and all of a sudden just stuff happens and you're like, wait a second, how and why? And this doesn't make sense, because it's proof that a higher power is actually orchestrating for you. And then all of a sudden your vibration just shifted, and you are not a vibrational match to specific things anymore, or your vibration attracts other things, and you're like, how is this even possible? Which is evidence for the fact that obviously our auric field, our aura, our akasha, which I have an upcoming episode also with an Akashic Records reader, and she's been diving deep into the akasha of the earth and what's happening. And we talked about the akasha being your auric field and the aura that you have that magnetizes or repels specific things, right? And then we have to see very clearly that relationships in essence are also, or can be, attracted towards us to just learn and grow. And if we've learned a lesson, there's no need for the relationship anymore. I've talked about that in some of the other episodes that I did before, and sometimes it's hard for the human to understand, but that's what I'm saying with this Gemini ending, Neptune ending. Neptune is about dissolving. It's just things just fall away, and you're like, it's beyond my control, right? Just have to surrender that whatever goes is meant to go, and not grieve it too much, not be too upset about it, even though it hurts, right? But to understand that you can never lose something that was meant for you anyways. So have you even lost anything if that falls away? I know it's hard to wrap your head around it, but that's really what it is, because love is free. Dylan and I talked about it. There's no trauma bonding, and in friendships, there's freedom. There's no these mixed weird feelings and this fog and confusion. That's all the Neptunian fog that we are clearing out of Pisces, right? And Gemini is the conversations you have, the people you talk to on a day-to-day basis, your immediate environment, and all of these things. And we've been clearing stuff around that, the people we talk to, all of a sudden stuff has been cleared and we don't talk to them anymore. Or, the thoughts and conversations you have in your mind, all of a sudden it's gone and it's just not bothering you anymore. And it's I can really see that we have been lifted, so to speak, to a higher vibration where that veil has been not there anymore. So Pandora's box opened with a lot of insights, a lot of realizations, a lot of knowledge. I've had so many crazy downloads and puzzle pieces coming together. I'm where do I even start with putting all of that together now? It's wild. And then at the same time, again, people acting all weird or being irritated, just squaring yourself out of your life. And you're like, wait, I thought you would be here for the long haul, but I guess it was just meant for us to learn together, and now it's good. So it's if you've been experiencing stuff like that, know that it's not anything that should concern you. That's the best way to put it. And that everything that you need will be in your life, because what we will learn in Cancer season, that we started to learn in 2018, 2017, when the nodes were North Node in Cancer, it's really about us being nurtured by the motherboard or the mothership, by the divine, however you want to say that, and trusting that everything will be provided for us and we will have everything that we need, and we don't have to be concerned that anything is taken away from us that we might miss in the end, or we might grieve, because actually the things that are meant to stay in our life will stay in our life. And I really, really believe that. I really, really trust that, and can really see also the patterns of, the things that also fall away. It's not too, there is a shock moment in the beginning, but then at the same time, it's actually not too dramatic. So the human in you is maybe panicking, but the soul and the higher mind knows that everything is in divine order. And we are also in Gene Key 15 as we move into the SOULstice in the next months, and it's really all about activating your magnetism. And what keeps your aura not magnetic and dull, which is the shadow aspect, is when you have gunk in your auric field, when you have karmic loops, when you have, just like vampires, ghosts, whatever you want to call it, just feeding off of you and are engaging in things that are not in alignment with your true soul's path. So that's really what keeps us in these loops and spirals when we keep engaging. And again, South Node is in Libra. I mean, what can I say? We have to uncouple our ties and our energetic field from connections that are not serving us, or that were just there to give us a lesson. And if we claim to source that we've learned the lesson, there is no need anymore to attract these karmic patterns, these repetitive loops. And it doesn't even have to always be relationships in terms of like romantic connections or even friendships. It can even be, the relationships you have to money, the relationships you have to yourself, the relationship you have to your mind, the relationship you have to spirit and spirituality, the relationship you have to the world, period. Because we are relating to everything. Everything is relative to us. And I love that, actually. I say it in this way because I read it somewhere. I think Terrence Howard was putting that into his book, and I'm like, that's so true. Like, I never saw the word relative, like the relative perspective, as like relative, like, you're connected, like related. And so that's like an interesting wordplay that we have in language, how it's being related to you or relative to you. Is it really connected to you? Like, how is it all relating, right? How is it all relating, but then also how is it all relative? Is it only relating to you because it's your perception and your bias, and you make it be so to speak, right? You make it a karmic bond, you make it a repetitive loop because you think it's related to you, you inherited it, right? But maybe it's not even, it's just our judgment that we inherited that, and that's how it's supposed to be, and that's who you are, and you define yourself by what you are related to, right? Or what you relate yourself to, when really that's all relative. It's all relative because from a higher perspective, source is family, and you come from the ultimate freedom. But you keep yourself trapped in these karmic bonds and loops because, again, ancestors, heritage, that's all Capricorn stuff that wants to be cleared. But if you would be free from all of that, how would you operate? How would you define yourself? And that's the tricky part, because then there would actually be not really a definition, so to speak. And then that might be terrifying. That might be scary, to not be able to define yourself in that sense. So I just wanted to share that and give you that as, to contemplate on. If stuff has been weird and like really wonky, and you almost feel like this could be like the wildest crazy dream, but it's actually happening in real life. Well, you know, life is a dream, an eternal dream, and you just have to sometimes know that Spirit also shows us these weird things happening to show us how unreal stuff actually is, how fluid and flexible, and how I say unstable in a positive way, or in like a soothing way. It's not as solid as we think it is. It's not as set in stone as we think it is or make it seem to be. But the thing that we are so fixated on and keeping, actually, that keep us in a loop and keep us in this spiral, and keeps not in the spiral, in the loop, keeps us in the loop, keeps us in the trap, keeps us recircling, is because we are so fixated, right? That's also the fixed signs here, being shaken up and awakened, because we think our identity and who we are and define ourselves to be is so fixed. But I mean, every single day, I don't know how many times I've said this on this podcast, but every single day you are a brand new person. You wake up in a new world. Every single second you engage with something. It's a new dimension. It's a new energy. You just shifted into a new energy, and by law of nature, you are in a different reality. As every single second your vibration shifts, you're in a different dimension. You're in a different dimension. You're in a different spectrum of possibility. Right? That means every time you learn something, every time you see something, every time you perceive something, that's the best way to put it. With every perceptual experience or sensory, with every perceptual experience, every time your eyes take something in, you shift. That might sound crazy, but that's true. That's why meditation, having your eyes closed, can be a point of stillness, right? But then even that shifts you into a different perception and experience, right? And it shifts your vibrational field. So the only consistent is change. Nothing is solid. Everything is vibrating and moving all the time. You're shifting, like there's no avoiding in that. And so in a way that can be soothing, because nothing is stable. Nothing is stable. Which also means that your emotional state or the things that upset you, it's not stable. Like it's not gonna stay. It's gonna move. We don't have to dramatize or freak out when things are happening. There can be completely different story tomorrow or in an hour. So we can take a chill pill for a second, relax, and see if it stays. Right? And most of the time it only stays because the second it happens, we fixate so much on, we want to have that change. We want to have it gone. We don't want to accept it. And that literally keeps us in the loop, right? That keeps us from not evolving. Instead of, if you would just chill and be like, well, let's see if that's going to last. You know, your emotional response, which is an energetic charge, is different. It's chill. You know, it doesn't mess with your frequency. And then by nature, it could just fall away. You know, it can just fall away and actually, you know, nothing happens. So maybe it was just a test to see where your vibrational stability is, because that's the only thing that can be stable. For you to stay anchored in your frequency, in your heart, in your trust. So I would love to hear how you are experiencing these closures and squares and the tension that might come with it. And if you feel it too, you know, you've been going through stuff and you're like, this is wild, and it has confused you, but then at the same time might have also opened new pathways and new things coming up too, because that's whenever you clear something out of the field, law of nature, it must be filled with something else that can take up the space, because there's no way that we are in emptiness. And for me, that's been definitely like so much clearing, but that is at the cellular level, and then at the same time resurfacing of like wisdom and knowledge and like things that I am focusing about, and that now all of a sudden makes sense. I mean, I've been deep into history, DNA rabbit holes that I will share more about in the future, and then creative projects, and then the rebranding of the podcast, people reaching out to me to want to be on the podcast and things like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shift my focus to these things instead of like, perpetuating or trying to figure out why other things are not working out. Just trusting. As I always like to say, keep on trusting and celebrate the things that are taken away of you. I've been talking to Colin, Queer Cosmos. It's like we never really got out of eclipse season because stuff is still being eclipsed out of our life in an interesting way. So let me know if that resonates with you, if you would like to make some sense of your clearing and what's ahead of you. And then also when you've been clearing stuff, you have so much more room and capacity to finally focus on what you are actually here to do. It's not about karmic ties and closure all the time. It's actually about service and like building the new world that we've talked about in the episode with Dylan. And if you would like to step into that and be activated for it because we need you, please reach out and we're going to activate you in a breakthrough session, let you know how you can serve and what it is that you are meant to co-create as the puzzle piece that you are. I would be honored to guide you towards your power and into your service, because I only want to work with people that are really here to we're going to build this new earth. Like this karmic old stuff, like it's beyond, like it's behind now. Like let's just not fixate it on it anymore and basically distract us from what we are actually here to do. And if the things that bother you are a distraction or actually leading you forward, and we just ain't got time anymore for distractions. So as I said, reach out, info@abracadabrababy.de or Magic Kathy Official for a breakthrough session where we dive into your gene keys, your human design, your astrology, what's been activated for you, how you're going to serve in the best way possible and magnetize the right people and the right fractal and the right opportunities to you, because all I want for you is to be in your magnetism, Gene Key 15, so you can finally not feel this dull and weird life here anymore, but feel the radiance that you are and step into the service that you're meant to do. Yeah, I mean, to put it simply in the words of the podcast, to step in your magic, right? So share this episode with anyone you feel like would resonate. It means the world to me. Share what your main takeaways. Definitely make sure to read the forecast on Instagram for more insights and stay up to date with everything that is going on a day-to-day basis. Thank you so much for your feedback also on everything I write. It means the world to me. And I would love if you could, rate the podcast as well, give the podcast some love, because I also put my heart and soul into that. And sometimes I'm like, oh, why is no one really putting like a review on iTunes or letting me know if, they listen or whatever. Because sometimes it's like, am I just talking to myself here? So I even have to continue. But I know you're all listening, so I can feel you in the field. But sometimes it's good to hear feedback, the projector that I am. So if you feel called to do that, it's the tiniest bit of gratitude that you can give back to me. It would mean the world for me. You can also share the episode on your Instagram and tag me so I can repost and see who's listening. Let me know what you're doing while you listen. And yeah, we will definitely talk very soon. And in the meantime, I either see you in a breakthrough session or while you step in your magic.